Welcome to the I'm Booked podcast. I'm April O'Leary, and this is the YouTube version of our podcast. To get the audio version, you can hop on over to Spotify or anywhere that you consume audio podcasts. We are going to jump into some really cool content, so stay tuned for our next guest. We look forward to connecting with you, and be sure to subscribe. And to start your author adventure, hop on over to o'learypublishing.com, where you can map out the entire process and see what writing a book would look like for you. Let's get started.
Welcome to the I'm Booked podcast. I'm April O'Leary, and I'm glad to have you all back here. And I'm excited to say we've got our very own Loren Culp here for a second interview, just shy of 3 years since the publication of his book, American Cop. So welcome back to the show, Loren.
It's great to be back with you, April.
So we were just chatting right before we started this recording here and laughing that we can't believe it's been 3 years. Loren's book was launched on President's Day in February 2019. And a lot has happened since that publication, including another book called An Insubordinate Life, which came out last year and tells Loren's story from country boy to candidate for governor. And tell me, Loren, when you first launched American Cop, what were your hopes for that book at the time?
I was just hoping to educate citizens here in Washington State, about the Constitution, about their rights, and about standing up for their rights. Because, in a lot of places, our rights have been under attack. So that was the whole thing behind that book. And I didn't expect all that has happened since to actually happen. It's kind of surreal what's been going on.
Totally surreal. And for those of you who know that I'm located in Naples, Florida, which couldn't be further away from the state of Washington. And Loren and I got connected through a mutual friend, Shemaine Nugent, and his Facebook post, which was in November of 2018, that got a lot of exposure around the gun rights that you were protecting in your town of Republic, Washington, led to the idea to generate this book and put it together in a very quick fashion, I might add.
Yes. I actually wrote it and got it to you. I think it was within a month, the month of December of 2018.
It was within a month.
Yeah,
it was within a month. Yes.
It was crazy,
so Loren and I
was
hopped
working on it.
It was.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well,
we got a little bit of a delay.
Yeah, well, it was funny. So Loren and I hopped on the phone, and we mapped out the book, sort of what he wanted to say, and possible chapter titles and chapter, the title of the book. And we brainstormed, and then basically I said, if you can get it to me by December 31st, I will promise you we get it out by President's Day. And we did, but I literally did not hear one word from Loren in the month of December. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. It was funny. I was working as a police chief in the small town of Republic, Washington. And the month of December, we had some time off around Christmas. I took some vacation. And I was literally, sometimes I didn't sleep at night. I would get started working on the book and just get into it, and time would just fly by. But I spent a lot of vacation days and my days off doing nothing but typing away on that book. And I didn't, because I didn't know a book should take 6 months or a year to write, most of them, but I just did what was in my head, and it just came out real quick.
And one of the things that I love about Loren is that he's just a genuine person who's just passionate about his message. We all bring our experience to the table when we become authors. So we all have our own individual life experience of the family we grew up in, the part of the world we grew up in, the things that are important to us, and all of that. And so I believe that's why you're able to write your book so quickly, because it was part of who you are. And it was something that wasn't manufactured. It came out from the heart.
Right. Yeah. It's, I grew up in a very conservative home. My dad was a police officer when I was young, and then later on went into construction. But a very conservative home. The Constitution, the Bill of Rights are very important documents, obviously. And the Second Amendment, especially in my family, we're a big, hunting family. We go out and get our own meat to barbecue and to eat out in the woods. And so the Second Amendment was very much a part of my life and something that I truly believe in. And so that's kind of the catalyst of what happened. They passed an anti-gun initiative here in Washington. And as the police chief, I put a post on Facebook that said, I will not arrest people for that violation. And, that's something that police chiefs and sheriffs, they have discretion on what laws their departments are going to focus on. And that was absolutely not one that we were going to focus on because I took an oath of office to uphold and defend the Constitution, and I wasn't going to violate citizens' constitutional rights. So that's kind of the catalyst that started this whole thing. And when my post on Facebook to all of the 1,100 people that lived in Republic, when that went viral, it was picked up by the national news. I ended up on Tucker Carlson, and I did hundreds of radio and TV interviews, newspaper interviews from outlets all over the United States. And it just kind of blew my mind that all of that happened because, I believe that it is public servants' job to uphold their oath of office and protect citizens' rights. So that was a catalyst. And to see what happened after that, the book, like you said, was published on President's Day 3 years ago. And so I just spent time after that on my days off. Every weekend, I would travel somewhere here in Washington State, going to sportsman shows and gun shows, trying to promote the book. And get the information out to the citizens. That's what I was doing. And it's so funny because I would go to these events and I would be invited to different places to speak as well. And then people, after reading the book and hearing me speak, I started getting a lot of people asking me to run for governor. And that's where the craziness started, because I never was really a public speaker. I didn't have any ambitions to be in politics. I was just kind of the guy that, did a really good job at what I was doing and serving the citizens. I had no ambitions to be into politics. I didn't like to speak in front of people. I remember some of the speaking events I went to, I would have my speech written out and I would stand at the podium where literally with sweat just dripping off of down my face, and I was shaking. But I guess practice makes perfect, because now I speak everywhere. But it was way out of my comfort zone.
And I love that back before you took to the road, Loren had, from his prior business being construction, you had a trade show booth, and you had the ingenious idea to refashion that booth as a book selling booth. And so you got a banner made, and you had some of the testimonials and Amazon reviews on there. And when you were showing up at these sportsman shows and gun shows, you were shaking hands with people, you were taking pictures with them, you were selling the book, you were getting a chance to speak on some of the stages and those. I remember there was one specific, was it the Falcon Gun Show?
Yes.
That you were going Falcon around and I don't know how I remembered that out of the air, but you would go and you would get some spots to speak at those events. And it's amazing what can happen just from a grassroots level when you're passionate about your message. And, so many authors that we work with, they've got excellent books, they've got a great message, but if you don't really get out there and hustle, like if you hadn't gotten out to those shows and those sportsmen and every weekend on your weekend off have somewhere to be, your book could still be languishing on your shelf. It would still be a great book, but nobody would have read it. And so it wouldn't have really maximized the purpose. And I think that you having the background as a business owner was also helpful. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, it was true, but I remember talking to you about it too, because I wasn't seeking fame or notoriety or anything. I just wanted to get this information out to the people, so that, that they understood their constitutional rights and they would stand up for them as well. But I remember talking to you and about having a website and having some swag and getting out and promoting the book. And it's like, oh, I really don't want to do that. But, because that was,
I do remember I did. Yeah. I remember I did kind of force you. Pushed you out of your comfort zone.
Right. I had to get out of that comfort zone. And, really, when you think about it, that's the only way that, you can grow as a person is by getting out of your comfort zone.
And, it's funny to think that, there's a saying, it's from the Bible, actually. I don't know if you know the saying that don't despise the day of small beginnings. Have you heard of that?
Oh, I have not heard that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so it's that you got to start somewhere. And so when we started with this book, I remember, the website and all of that. And I was like, at least let me get you like a MailChimp opt-in, so they could download remember it was like the top 10 gun facts, or like there was some report we did from the sheriff's desk or like something like that. I can't even remember. We put that at the front of the book. So people knew that they could find you online and download this special report, but then we had a way to contact them, follow up with them. And so I think that, because you bought that GoDaddy URL and you have the Chief Culp URL, even though there wasn't some robust website or anything, it was literally just a basic free opt-in for MailChimp, then that gave you the ability to then build the website, add in the swag. It grew into a full-scale political campaign. So I want to bridge into that and say, you started getting these rumblings from people who were asking you to run. What were you thinking at that time?
Well, when it first started happening, like I said, I was really nervous public speaking. And the thought of, it was a compliment, they're asking me to run for governor. But it was still, in the beginning, it was furthest thing from my mind. It's like a governor. That is like, wow, jumped into the stratosphere all of a sudden, and at first I had no desire to do it, but the more, and like I said, I was going every weekend. The more I went out and was speaking, the more and more people had read the book and were asking me the same thing. Everywhere I went, people were asking me the same thing. And then I started, after a few months went by, it's like, you know what? Why not? I don't see anybody else running for governor that, and this was 2019 now. The election was in 2020. I didn't see anybody else that had jumped in that I could get behind. And I was like, you know what? Why not? It's time for just regular people to stand up and run for political office, because the professional politicians on either side of the aisle, they just get in it, and pretty quick they're in it for themselves. It seems like a lot of them. And so I think it was July, after spending 5 months traveling around the state talking to everybody, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to do it. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of people asking me to, so here we go. And I announced my candidacy for governor of Washington State. And there ended up being 36 candidates for governor. And there was, one person in particular was kind of the favorite. He was probably better known on at least on one side of the state than I was, had money, had the Republican Party basically backing him. And, I had no one. I had no campaign manager at the time. I didn't even know how to run a campaign, but I just felt it was the right thing to do. And, I eventually found a campaign manager and started traveling around doing little meet and greets. And in the beginning, I remember having some meet and greets where I had to travel, like 6 to 8 hours away. And some of the meet and greets in the beginning, there was, I remember one in particular, there was only one couple there, husband and wife. And I treated it like it was a room full of people, but it grew over the next year it grew to where we were having a full stage with a live band. I mean, a big production, with vendors that would pay to come and have a spot to sell shirts and food and all kinds of things, artwork. And it grew to where we had 2,000 to 3,000 people at these events. We usually had them on a Friday and a Saturday, and it was 2,000 to 3,000 people each night. It was absolutely crazy, and it just grew. That grassroots just sprung up, and I ended up I lost. This is a heavily Democrat state. I lost to the incumbent, but I got more votes than any other Republican gubernatorial candidate in Washington state history by almost 350,000 votes. So it was absolutely amazing.
I wish I had like the button to push, like cheering, like applause right now, like woo! Because it's amazing. Yeah. And watching this all unfold from Naples, Florida was incredible to see the amount of energy and excitement and how it grew. And even you were doing live Facebook streams every Tuesday night, and Chris Gergen, your campaign manager, would get on, and these things were like professional with the lower thirds and the intro and the countdown timer, and they were exciting.
Yeah, it was fun. And thank God for Chris Gergen. I ended up he's my campaign manager. It was all through the 2020 campaign, and currently is as well. But thank God I met Chris Gergen. And a funny little story. I don't want to get too sidetracked here, but I found Chris Gergen through Ted Nugent, believe it or not. Ted Nugent and I
remember that.
Kind of in contact, off and on over the years, been to several of his concerts backstage. But I emailed him and told him that, because I know he's very political, and told him that I am running for governor. Things are kind of looking a little crazy, but I don't have a campaign manager. I need one. And lo and behold, Ted Nugent knew Chris Gergen from other political campaigns and put us in touch, and it's been history ever since.
It's amazing. And I think that it's crazy because so much 1 degree of separation and finding your people, it comes down to somebody recommending somebody. How did I find you? How did you and I get connected, right? It was through an entirely other network. We knew each other through another network, and had become kind of internet friends, and we knew each other. And I was starting a new publishing company, having done some of my own books and all of that. And we're two new people starting new things at the same time, and it's exciting to do things together with people that you know and care about. So,
and that's
then Ted wrote the foreword for your book. Yeah.
Yes, he did. That's kind of a funny story in itself too, April. I knew, we had met, and I knew that you were an author, getting back to starting American Cop. And I wanted to write this book, but I didn't know how to get started. I didn't know how to get a book published. And the thought came to me when I was like, April O'Leary, I know she's an author. She'd know what I should do. And I called you on the phone and told you that. And I remember distinctly, you said, well, that's funny, Loren. I just started my own publishing company. So yeah, it's just funny how all of these things work out.
It really is. It really is crazy. And so Loren also then produced an audio CD because he had people that were asking for the audiobook version. So he's got the audiobook version now of American Cop. And he went through the whole political campaign cycle, got the most votes a Republican, has ever garnered in the state of Washington. And now he is on to a new adventure. Not only has he published a second book, An Insubordinate Life, because I believe from all of the feedback you got from people out on the road is people want to know who you are. Where did you come from? What's your story?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was very weird and surreal, not only to be running for governor, but to have people after I would get done speaking, I'd come off stage and I'd have a little booth, and people would line up for 100 or 150 yards long people that had been in the audience to come up and shake my hand, get a picture, have an autograph book or whatever. But I did. I get a lot of questions, about who I was. They knew me as the police chief who stood up for citizens' rights, but they didn't know anything about my life. And so I thought, well, you know what? I should write another book. That's what I did within some other life. With your help.
And one thing I love about that book is it really shows you as just a human being, just like any of us, without any pretense, without any airs. You weren't like, I got to climb the top of this mountain and I'm going to be, step on people to get there. I think that the opportunity presented itself. Politics is about serving. And you were serving already as a police chief. So you had been in service in the Army, and your whole life has really been about service, serving, public service. Right. And so to me, this is just a different form of public service. And so you took that very seriously. And I think through an insubordinate life, you showed that. It wasn't like this concept of serving the public was totally new and you were going to just sort of ride this wave of a viral Facebook post. It was like, this is part of who you are. This is the way you were raised.
Yeah, even when I was running my own business, I became a police officer late in life. I was 49 when I decided to realize my childhood dream and become a police officer. But for 20 years, after I got out of the military, I went to work in the construction field. I learned how to build houses for a few years, and then started my own construction company. And for just a little over 20 years, I ran that construction business. So that was a service business as well. I'm serving the customers or the contractor or whoever I'm working for. So yeah, my whole life has pretty much been in the service, industry of one form or another, whether it's military or police or running my own business. So
and I think that's why people connected so much with you, because you embody the American dream, someone who was able to run a business, who was able to serve their country, who was able to, you come from a small town, so you're not detached from the people that you're serving. You
right.
are the people you're serving. And so that led you, you went through this whole campaign, you wrote this other book, and now talk about your new political endeavor, campaign.
Okay. Yeah. Like we've been talking about, I'm a conservative, but Republican. And so after the campaign in 2020, I was trying to think about, okay, well, that was great. What should I do next? And it just so happens that, I was I was taken by surprise, I guess you could say, because 4 days before the election, the city where I was the chief of police decided to go with a contract with the county and do away with my police department. They thought they could save money doing that. So I was, 4 days before the election, I was out of a job. And then the election happened and we lost. And so it's like, okay, well, I'm almost 60 years old. What do I do now? So I retired from being a police officer, and I was trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. And so I decided that, well, you know what? We didn't win that one. We didn't win that battle, but the war's not over. So I looked around, and there was a candidate or a incumbent congressman here in Washington that voted to impeach President Trump and then voted for the January 6th commission. And so I decided that I'm going to run against that Republican and take a shot at getting into Congress so that I can serve the people there. The governor's race is not for another 4 years if I was even thinking about running for that again. But so I'm in the middle of a campaign for U.S. Congress here in the 4th District of Washington State. And that's going very well. From residual, I guess, from the governor's race, I've got a ton of support in the district that I'm in that I'm running in is the most conservative district in the state as well. So got a lot of support going there.
That's awesome. And so you'll be traveling, assuming you win. I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but back and forth to DC. And that's a really exciting new adventure to be on as well.
Absolutely. Yes. And I just got a phone call a few days ago from President Trump, and he has endorsed my campaign as well. So if you're conservative, that's a good thing. So looking forward to this campaign.
That's a nice disclaimer. You know, I saw that and I thought, you know what, regardless of whether you do or don't like Trump, I mean, how many people get endorsed by a president in their lifetime? You know, I mean, that's a really, really cool thing to have happened, you know, so we congratulate you for that. And to say in 3 years to go from a police chief in your town of 1,000 people to traveling around, selling your book, building a website, building a brand, hiring getting a campaign manager, going across the state, running a gubernatorial race, and now running for US representative is like unbelievable. It's not even a big enough word, unbelievable. It's like what else? I'm grasping for words here.
I never dreamed that any of this would happen, April. It's, I still have to pinch myself now and then. I mean, I'm sitting in my office doing interviews on television multiple times a week. It's, if somebody would have come up to me before I decided to write American Cop, a few years ago and said, you know what, you're going to be on TV multiple times a week. You're going to get a phone call from the former president of the United States. All of this stuff. Your book's going to be a #1 bestseller. All of these things. I'd have said, you are crazy. I'm just a guy hanging out in the mountains. But you never know when you say yes to something and just do what what's inside of you to do. You never know what world that's going to open up. It's just been amazing. And I owe a big thank you to you and your publishing company. It's been absolutely amazing working with you and the people that you have working with you. It was, like I said, I've never written a book before, didn't know the first thing about it. I just knew I needed to get thoughts in my head down on paper. And you guys walked me through that whole thing and helped me out with it all. It was absolutely amazing.
Well, I'm super honored that we were able to do it together. And, I just think that to me, the power of a book to be able to spread a message, there's almost nothing that can match that, because you're able to duplicate yourself and people can sit in their living rooms and listen to your voice through your book in a way that, they may never hear you. You may never get to talk to them, or they may not be able to attend a rally or whatever. And yet you're still able to share your message. And to me, that's what's so important about putting it all down on paper, even when you're like, I don't know how to write a book. I don't know what I'm doing. But when you work with people who can help you, it's not really that hard, is it?
No, it's not. No. And, you never know who you're going to reach or what impact it's going to have on other people. Even writing stories about things that have happened in my life. I've had people come up to me with tears in their eyes and say, I could hear your voice when I was reading your book. And so many things that happened to you happened to me. And just knowing somebody else went through some of the things was empowering to that person that read it. So you never know who you're going to impact, with what story. So it's absolutely amazing.
It is amazing. So I still need to get up to the state of Washington and tool around with you and, I don't know, shoot a tin can or something, because I don't really know a lot about guns. I grew up in the city, so I'm still a city girl, but I'm willing to let you teach me. If you put a tin can, I don't know, do people do that? I know it's like a stereotype, right? Put a tin can on like a wooden fence or something. I don't know. but it sounds like an idea.
It happens. It happens.
Does it happen? So
Definitely.
I just want to thank you so much for your time to be back on today and give us a full update and celebrate 3 years of O'Leary Publishing and 3 years of American Cop, and 3 years of us, endeavoring to do something that we had no idea. We were shooting blind. Isn't that true?
Yes, it was great. It was absolutely awesome. And yeah, I'm sure that I'm going to be traveling to Florida sometime soon, and we'll have to get together for at least a cup of coffee or lunch or something like that.
That would be awesome. So, and if you haven't picked up Loren's book, An Insubordinate Life, I encourage you to do so. You will see more about him behind the scenes, how he grew up, where he came from, and you will love him even more than you already do after this interview. So thank you again, Loren. Where should they go to contribute to your campaign or find more about you online?
My campaign website is culp4congress.com, and that's Culp,
right.
C-U-L-P.
Culp, 4, F-O-R, or the letter 4, or the number 4?
F-O-R.
F-O-R, culp4congress.com. Pick up his book, support his campaign, and thank you so much, Loren, for being a part of all that we're about here at O'Leary Publishing, which is sharing our passions, raising a livable consciousness, and making a difference in the world. And you're certainly doing that. And we thank you for being a part of it.
Well, thank you, April. I really appreciate everything you've done.
So this has been another episode of the iBook Podcast. I'm April O'Leary signing off. Be sure to hop on over to o'learypublishing.com to start your author adventure and see what writing a book could do for you in your profession, in your career, and what doors it might open. We thank our guests for being a part of the show today, and be sure to subscribe to podcasts here on YouTube. We look forward to serving you and helping you get your book out into the world.